Okay, cool. All right, so
That's
that's
easy.
it. All right, you can get back to your, I'll wait till she gets into her seat, and as soon as she does, I'm gonna hit start webinar. We're live on Facebook. All right, okay,
All right.
go. Here we go, here we go. All right, welcome. Everybody coming in. Give a couple of couple minutes here. Let everybody get in the door. Get to their seats. Oh, they probably were already in their seats before they got here, weren't they? They already had a have seat will travel.
I don't think that makes any sense.
Yeah, I know, right? Have a hat will travel. Yeah. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. This is the Mass MEP Introduction to Lean Six Sigma. This is our information session, and today we have with us one of our project managers, Mr. Henry Hall. He is our Lean Six Sigma. I call him the extraordinaire. I got to come up with a new title for that, but we're going to go with that today. So Henry will be here to discuss a little bit about Lean Six Sigma, what it is, where it came from, and why you should have it as a part of your process. And then at the end of this, as we wrap it up, we do want to let everybody know that we have a Lean Six Sigma White Belt certification training. It is an 8-hour training program. We will have it at, we actually have a value that is attached to it. It is $99 to attend the training, but there will be a special discounted rate for those of you that are in attendance today. So you have registered and we know who you are. We'll give you a special code for that. So I'll get you the code and I'll make sure that we pop it into the chat. So it will just be for you to use, and you can use that code when registering, and it will actually cut the cost of the training in half. So we will have the training for you. It will be $49, and it is an 8-hour training. It will be held August 25th and 26th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. So we'll give you the code. We'll pop it into the chat at the end and the registration link to be able to go on and register. And we hope to see some of you there. So we do have an hour set aside. We have some poll questions that we will be asking. So we really would like for everybody to be a part of the polls. It does help us as Henry goes along with the content and steering the direction of the information in the content. If you do have any questions, more than likely, there is a saying I have heard in the past couple of days in some of the trainings I've been attending: if it's on your mind, it should be on your lips. So that means ask the question. And if you have that question, more than likely there's going to be at least another person in the audience that has the same question as you. So please, we ask if you could type them into the Q&A section and we can answer those questions as we go along. If there's something specific that you would like to direct to one of us, Henry or Emma and I directly, please go into the chat and pop that into the chat, and we will be sure to address that for you. So without further ado, we're going to hand this over to Henry. So enjoy your introduction to Lean Six Sigma.
Okay, is that my cue?
That's your cue.
Okay. Nothing gets by me. All right, so welcome to a Lean Six Sigma webinar. As Haley said, my name is Henry Hall, and I'm the project manager with MEP. I hope you find this session is somewhat informative. We'll try to keep it light. And as Haley said, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box in the chat room, and Haley will stop me from talking, and then we'll see if we can't get that question answered. So and away we go. So today's business climate requires good quality. We're going to go over that, kind of go over what is Lean Six Sigma, why is Lean Six Sigma valuable, go through a little bit of this Lean Six Sigma methodology, and a couple of measures of success. So Haley, oh, you beat me with the poll. So the question is, you want me to read the poll, or do you read the poll? All right, so I'm reading the poll. Are you familiar with what Six Sigma is? Do I get the answer? Because I know the answer to that.
You're not allowed to answer. You can't answer. It's against the rules.
All right.
Yeah, you know the answer. Anybody that knows the answer can't. And except for the audience, we want everybody in the audience to answer. Absolutely. Ooh.
Because I'm familiar with what it is.
Ooh. Okay. I'm glad that nobody said that they're in the wrong session. That's very, very good. I'm very glad for that.
Like the one time I had someone on the wrong plane, they're on the wrong flight.
All right, so everybody answered, Henry. So there you go. There's your poll.
All right, so I'll hit end polling. Oh, you're gonna hit end polling.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna share results.
Yep.
Or you already shared the results.
Nope, there you go. Yep.
Right, so we have 6 yeses and 3 somewhats.
Ooh,
No nos, that's good.
that's good.
And everyone belongs here. So that's we're off to a good start, Haley.
We are. We're doing this. We're batting 1,000 so far. I'm gonna go with it. Okay, so I think we have another poll, right, that we want to share.
Think so.
All right, so we're gonna do. Okay, how about this? Let's see what we can get from this poll. These are always fun. It's like the slot machines. Ooh, ooh, you can see where this one's heading.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
you're all right. End of session.
That's wow. Everybody gets a whole hour back of their time. We won't even
Right.
tell anybody that you're not in the webinar anymore.
Manufacturing companies will definitely benefit from Lean Six Sigma. Service companies can, medical companies can, even offices. So depending upon how you apply it, and you get into different depth levels, any organization, anything with a process can benefit from Lean Six Sigma, and and generally anything you do is a process. So in my mind, the right answer is all of the above. And hopefully by the end of the day, you'll know why. So I'm going to get this out of my screen. All right. So who can benefit from Lean Six Sigma? Generally any company, manufacturing company that is looking to improve the introduction process to new products. The Lean Six Sigma methodology is really to capture the voice of the customer and make sure you're satisfying the voice of the customer. So when you're introducing new products, that's obviously a critical point, because you don't want to introduce a product that the customer doesn't want. If you need to reduce costs due to process variations, very, very good tools involved in that. Reducing product lead times. If your process is running well, typically you will reduce your product lead time. Improving equipment uptime, reduce unexpected downtime. Engaging your employees. A lot of the bigger Six Sigma projects, you need resources of generally everybody on the manufacturing floor, or anyone who's doing that process. I always go by the rule, no one knows more about a process than the people that do it every day. No one knows more about the machine than the person that runs it day in and day out. And the key thing with the Six Sigma process, Lean Six Sigma process, is to utilize data. Because I always go by the mantra, in God we trust, everyone else got to have data. Real data. You just can't, and you can't be making it up either. So in today's environment, you've got technology changing almost every day. Your competition, there's new competition from all over the world as the world becomes a global economy. And then obviously your own people can be somewhat of a challenge, especially getting new people. Today's environment, everyone is looking for qualified people to work in their operation. It just is not an easy thing to do. So realistically, the only real constant anymore is that you got to change. And that change is driven by technology changes, competition, people. So what we see with today's clients is that quality nowadays, it's a given, meaning that if you don't have good quality, you will essentially work yourself out of business. Everyone's quality is it's expected, demanded, and if you don't have it, you will lose it to the competition. 20, 30 years ago, you know, when I was 5 years old, quality wasn't necessarily a prerequisite. People were willing to pay for it. Now, it's essentially a cost of doing business. Customers, I would assume all your customers are demanding shorter lead times. Customer loyalty and retention is critical. It is much easier to retain a customer than it is to gain a new one. And you want to make sure that your processes are geared towards satisfying your customer. There's been an incredible downward price pressure. So everyone needs to lower their costs. The days of 2 to 3 to 4% price increases year in and year out really has become a thing in the past. So every company is driven to quality, cost, and lead time reduction. And it's, I'm assuming everybody has that problem. So what is Six Sigma? Hey, I think we had a question, a poll here, right? Or we get that to the end. Six Sigma is a vision and a philosophical commitment to customers, so you can offer the highest quality, lowest cost products. It's a metric that demonstrates quality levels at 99.9997% performance or yield for products and processes. It's a benchmark for our product and process capability to compare ourselves to best in class. It's much easier to expand your market share if you can prove that your quality is better than everybody else's. And it's a practical application of statistical tools and methods to help us define, measure, analyze, improve, and control our process. We'll get back to that at a later point. But in the meantime, are you familiar with, anyone ever hear of the DMAIC roadmap?
Emma, you can't answer.
Oh, is Emma answering?
No,
That's crap.
no, she's not allowed.
All right.
Just the audience. Audience only. Ooh, and they've all answered. Ooh, good mix.
All right. So the yes and the no's have it by one. So let's end the polling. We'll share the results. And by a margin of 1 vote, no's lead the A's 5-4. So Six Sigma is essentially a measure of your process capability or your defect level. Six Sigma comes out to 99.9997 or about three defects per million. Four Sigma process, 99.4%, 3 Sigma, 93%. So the general rule, the higher your Sigma level, the better your product. And you only get higher Sigma levels when you reduce variation. So now there's a poll. That's what I'm looking for. Is 99% good enough?
This is not a trick question.
Depends on your business, but generally speaking, 99%. Let's end that poll, and we're going to share the results. So 3 of you say 99% is good enough. 6 say it isn't. couple of examples of why I would argue 99% is not good enough. 99% means that your water at any 15-minute interval during the day could be unsafe. So if your water 15 minutes comes out of your tap and is not safe to drink, 15 minutes any given day, you're at 99%. There would be 5,000 incorrect surgical procedures per week. And if you're having your tonsils out and you don't want to wake up with your left finger removed, so you got to be real careful about that. Too long or short landings at major airports each day. 200,000 wrong prescriptions each year, or no electricity for almost 7 hours each month. So if your processes were at 99%, those could be the results. And 99% when you're landing short, that's kind of like bad numbers. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of W. Edwards Deming. He, in my mind, he was really the father of modern product quality. He was an American who went to Japan in the late 40s to help them rebuild their manufacturing processes. He went there because they listened to him. American management at the time did not. He was the father of championing, he championed zero defects. And he came to the conclusion that the better design of the products and the uniformity of the products will result in improvements in your customer satisfaction and your ability to provide really good service to your customers. And his statement is, if you improve quality and you automatically improve productivity, you stay in business and you provide jobs. It's kind of that simple. And in the starting in the 1970s, when the foreign competition started to come into the U.S., especially in the automotive market, the Japanese cars at that time were vastly more reliable, and they had really taken to what Deming was teaching them and took it to heart and drove it through their entire organization. He would give talks in Japan, and his audience would be the CEOs of the companies, presidents, CEOs, the top leadership. And he said, I would give the same talk to American companies, and I wouldn't get much upper management. I'd get the middle managers. And that's why toward the late 70s and 80s, we started to lose an awful lot of manufacturing business to overseas competition. So the meaning of Six Sigma, the meaning of life. The goal of Six Sigma is to align the process and the voice of is to align your process with the voice of the customer 99.9997% of the time. So the goal is to understand what your customer wants and translate that need via specification or whatever have you, typically via specification, and to align your process such that you deliver to your customer highest quality product, essentially defect-free. And again, the whole methodology is understanding the voice of the customer and making sure your process satisfies what the customer is asking for. And Six Sigma is really a very strong method to do that. You end up asking a lot of questions. So the philosophy of Lean Six Sigma is that everything is a process. All processes have inherent variability. And then you use data to understand the cost of such variability and then drive process improvements or drive out process variability. That's the name of the game, is to drive, from a Six Sigma perspective, drive out process improvement. Lean Six Sigma develops people by applying and giving leadership through managers, supervisors, and generally all professionals. And it helps also with the shop associates. So it kind of brings everybody together. You function as a team, especially on your more complex problems. And it really buys ownership throughout the organization. So a successful lean project will develop a sense of ownership and accountability for the employees. And success is felt all up and down the organization. And there's nothing more making people cohesive is when you're working on a project, making an improvement, and getting that aha moment where you understand something new in your process and it translates into a much better product for your customer. So, and Lean Six Sigma develops people by involving them through the process. Generally, a good Six Sigma project has people from all levels, and you're engaged together and you're accountable to management. If you do it right, you're going to build trust throughout the organization as long as you're transparent and you can share and teach the understanding of your process and the process with which you develop and improve your output. It builds respect through team building and skill set acknowledgement. And it develops a sense of ownership and accountability by increasing employee effectiveness and delivering sustained results. And that last thing is very important because when you start to make changes in things, sustaining the results can be difficult. But once you start to put together a good Six Sigma process with demonstrated success stories, then you're getting buy-in. And when you get the buy-in, then you can generally sustain the results throughout your company. Now, Six Sigma develops people in what we call different belt levels. Generally, white belts, and we have a white belt training in August. White belts it's kind of a ground floor opportunity to just understand what the DMAIC and the Six Sigma process is. You can be a good team member, support the team, and generally be a asset to the improving any particular problem. Then you've got yellow belts. Yellow belts are trained in the overall methodology and the basic problem solving concepts. Next level up, now we're getting into a more detailed look at process variability. And the green belt then is really trained to understand how to tackle variation, measure it, and work with various statistical tools to reduce variation and potentially waste in the process. The larger companies, and I've worked for companies that have 100,000 employees, we would have numerous belts at all these levels. Smaller companies, such as probably many of you, you're only going to have maybe one or two, maybe three to start with. And I would recommend the green belt at some point as a goal to reach. But you want to start with the white belt, yellow belt, green belt, and then black belts. That's when you really got complex problems, and you're going to want to use that when you've got multiple different sister organizations. So you've got to pull together, team members from different facilities. And I've worked on black belt teams that had members from at least the most was 3 different countries, and you end up speaking the language of a process person, and everyone can follow along and solve very international type problems, not the peace problems, but production problems. And then the master black belt is where you really start to understand statistical theory and then the ability to train everybody else. Personally, I'm a black belt, which means, I can train green belts, I can train yellow belts, and I cannot train a black belt level. We do offer it. You'll hear that later. But I'm pretty good with statistics and can really help companies solve roughly 80 to 90% of their problems. So the lean facet, the lean portion of Lean Six Sigma is, and this was developed by Toyota starting in the late 40s, going up into the early 80s. They created the 8 deadly sins of manufacturing. I won't go into them all here, but this is a good slide and a good acronym to understand that downtime in anything, downtime is not good. And downtime helps you remember the 7, they're the 8 deadly wastes. So defects, and the Six Sigma part of Lean Six Sigma attacks defects as well: overproduction, waiting, inventory, and the list is all 8 lean projects. Look at that. Oh, what does Lean Six Sigma improve in a process?
We like to ask questions that can be answered if you really pay attention. The answer may be on the screen, Henry. It may.
It's going to be kind of I'll wait for the last.
That's it.
Right. Kind of a tricky question. Lean Six Sigma looks at everything, value added and non-value added. But when you get to actually the Six Sigma methodologies, that's when you start really looking at your process and looking at the variation in that process. So the Six Sigma looks at the 5% of value of your process, and the lean portion looks at the non-value added. I would hope that everyone knows the difference between value added and non-value added. Value added is where you actually affect the form, fit, and function. So you're actually doing an operation or doing something to your product, to your process. Non-value added is everything else. The waste, the time, waiting for things, moving material, inventorying material, making bad stuff. All that is non-value added. Value added is when you're actually grinding something, or you're in a furnace, something where you're changing the product. So I always look at value added is kind of moving stuff. Or non-value added is moving stuff, the handling of material handling, material movement, and the value added is making the stuff, changing the form, fit, or function. So the Lean Six Sigma is the integration of 2 pretty significant business improvement approaches. Lean, lean, you got your process speed and waste and your kind of implicit infrastructure, which is kind of almost the entire factory. And what the lean process is to reduce the waste. The Six Sigma process, or Six Sigma process methodology, is looking at the quality of your product and the cost of your product, looking at your explicit infrastructure, meaning the equipment or the actual equipment that does things in your process, be it maybe a printer, a grinding machine, a welder, something that is required to move your product forward. So the lean speed enables your Six Sigma quality. Conversely, your Six Sigma quality enables lean speed. And really what we mean by lean speed is the time taken to go through your product to go from start to finish. As an example, when I was going through my lean training and did my training, I'd bring students to the Toyota factory in Louisville, Kentucky, or not Louisville, Georgetown, Kentucky. And the truck of the sheet metal, and that sheet metal would soon become the unibody, the fenders. When that truck backed in and the big crane took the sheet metal off to go into to start the process, less than 20 hours later, a Toyota Camry was driving off the line. So when we say lean, the speed, that is things go from start to finish in a very short amount of time. And that's because they've really taken advantage of understanding how to reduce waste and just keep things flowing right through the process. Six Sigma is where you look at, well, how well do the parts fit? That kind of methodology. How does the bending machine make an angle so it exactly fits with all the other parts? The welding machines, how do they attach everything? How do they do a weld that will satisfy 10, 15, 20 years without failing? So lean is focused on reducing waste. The Six Sigma portion is focused on reducing variation. So Lean Six Sigma combines the time-based strategy and solution sets inherent in lean manufacturing with the cultural, organizational, mechanical process, and the analytical tools of Six Sigma. So that leads you to the results that you've got the ability to respond to your customers faster, better, higher quality, less waste, lower cost. So here's kind of a pictorial of your traditional process. So you boat your process, the bottom of the lake or the river, whatever you want to call it, there's couple of what we call bumps in the road, being transportation time, operation time, rework, setup time, anything that is kind of a bump in the road or a waste that inhibits a smooth running process. What you end up doing is when you have these problems, you end up making more work in process or WIP, so you can manage your process and keep it always running while problems arise. Of course, when you have large amounts of work in process, you have a long lead time. So when you start to reduce your work in process, you start to reduce your lead time. Then you start to run into your problems. So when the WIP is reduced, then you start to hit the time traps or the rocks, and a lot of times that kind of wreaks havoc in your operation. Now you have a line shut down, a customer shut down, and you've got some unhappy people. What we want to do is to reduce those time tracks through the vigorous use of the Six Sigma tool set. You apply them at the worst time trap until that's no longer a problem. So in this instance, you look at your equipment setup time. And as you reduce your equipment setup time, you can reduce your WIP further. Then you start looking at your rework, because that would be the next short pole in the tent or the next largest rock that you're going to hit. And you keep reducing these barriers until your WIP is low and your product quality is high. So if you want to deploy this, and I recommend you do, the department principles that will always work, you need executive engagement, generally speaking, from the business leader, CEO, president, owner. He or she needs to understand that this is a good process and buys into what we're trying to do. A strong and respected management champion, And again, this slide's kind of geared towards the larger companies. So a smaller company, one or two people will have a couple of these roles will be fulfilled by one person. A strong and respected management champion. So that person is typically, on a smaller company, is going to be both the a higher executive and the management champion at once. Because the key is you want your management to support what you're doing. Because at some point there may be some financial financial need. We have to potentially invest money in a process, especially if your current process is not capable to meet your customers' needs. Project sponsors. So anyone who is leading a Six Sigma team or someone who's running a production line who needs something fixed, a process problem fixed. So that person would potentially be a product sponsor and the higher level owner of your project. You're going to be able to deploy the critical mass of key resources. My first project I brought in people from, we were making automotive halogen light parts. And we used to work for a company called Sylvania. And we were trying to reduce our costs by eliminating variation and keeping the equipment that we had running more consistently. And I ended up bringing in group leader, production operators, process engineer, and we even thought to bring in our tooling supplier, because our machines we have about 30 some odd machines making these little coils. And we started to find that when we were going through the Six Sigma tools, that our tooling became a big issue. And when I say big issue, a very high, pretty key input variable when we were looking at why machines were down. And so we ended up bringing in, at the time, our tooling supplier, and he came up with a couple of great ideas that, in my mind, made our project successful. So you got to bring in the critical mass. You don't want to have too many people, because then you don't get anything done. But a couple of key resources and a couple of different key operations all coming together to make a successful team. Lean Six Sigma belts should be selected from, I'll say, the future leaders of the company. Generally speaking, most of our original set of Six Sigma black belts ended up in very high senior leadership positions because they were successful at reducing costs and understanding variation, and you end up becoming good at managing and leading people. Establish a process for identification and selection within the business, lead for strategic observations or objectives. What you want to do is you can't solve everything at once. So you pick and if most companies have multiple issues, you've got to prioritize those to make sure that you're picking a project that will give you the biggest bang for the buck. And generally speaking, the biggest bang for the buck is the one that the customer is yelling the most loudly about. You want to actively reduce projects and process to reduce project cycle times. What that means is you want to limit the number of projects if you can, because if you work on 10 projects, you're not going to finish 10 projects. If you work on 5 projects, chances are pretty good you'll finish 5. So if you got 5 projects that get finished and 10 projects that don't, you're much more ahead of the game if you're working on 5 that get finished. Let's see. At every step of your process, you can measure results, be it your product variation, your percent defect, customer returns, WIP, inventories. You keep track of everything that you're trying to measure and trying to improve from start to finish on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, depending. Monthly is too long, but generally a daily to weekly basis. As you make improvements, you should be able to see your metrics improve. And generally, the people that are going to start going on to the white, green, black, yellow belt, as you start to manage products and projects, you really have to have pretty good leadership skills. And then, you always start with a baseline performance or a baseline, not baseline performance. And then from there, as time goes on, you've got a standard, you improve, then that after you improve something, that becomes the new standard. So it's essentially what we would call continuous improvement. Establishing a baseline, improving it, then that becomes a new baseline, and that's just kind of a never-ending effort. So Six Sigma 1.0, you had to improve your process performance. So Six Sigma defined is a method to eliminate the variation to the customer requirements. And then you want to define, measure, analyze, and improve the methodology. And you end up starting to develop not exactly mathematical models, but you want to start to develop the concept of Y is a function of all these X's. And really what that's telling you is that for every process, there are input variables. We call them KPIVs, key process input variables. And any process has multiple inputs. Some are much more critical than others. And what we're trying to develop here is in weeding out all the input variables that don't mean anything, and then understanding the variables that do mean something, and then working through testing and statistical analysis to reduce the variation. And once you start reducing your variation, now your output variable, or the Y, they tend to improve. So if your output variable is something that's measured by the customer, your customer should start to see a better product. And all of this is supported by this series of statistical analytical tools. So the DMAIC roadmap. There's a couple of different ways that you can describe problem solving. You got the Plan, Do, Check, Act, or PDCA, 5 Whys. The Six Sigma methodology is driven by the DMAIC roadmap. The DMAIC roadmap specifically is you define the process and define the performance objectives. And then you want to define the critical product and end process characteristics. So you got to define the problem. Customer Y is getting 3.6% defects every 2 years, or every year or every day, company C rejects one of our little widgets because it doesn't work. We got to start to develop methodologies to go and fix that problem. So you got to define the problem and make it something measurable, because then you can measure it, which is evaluate the process and or product performance. And essentially then that allows you to determine what the defect is and where to go. Okay, then analyze the root causes, develop solutions, improve, test solutions, verify results, and then control, make your permanent process changes, change your documentation, develop an audit plan to make things better and sustain the gains that you got. So the Six Sigma methods and tools for reducing process variation. So I don't know if everyone's familiar with the normal distribution or at least a histogram. But if your customer wants what's underneath the blue curve, so if this is length, so like maybe 1 feet to 2 feet, and your process can give you, 6 inches to 3 feet, you're making bad stuff. And the idea then is to make sure that what your process is producing matches what your customer wants. Got to reduce the variation. The variation comes from manpower, materials. You got different machines, different methods. You got measurement variations. And then you've got different, I say, Mother Nature variations. So if your process is affected by humidity or heat or cold, you got to find some way to take that into consideration and adjust things accordingly. So all these facets potentially can add process variation, and that's what you want to try to reduce. And the Six Sigma methodologies pinpoint through testing and various analyses which ones are the most important, which ones can you improve or need to improve. So Six Sigma is defined as a management system to execute a business strategy. And essentially, you just need to understand what your business strategy is, how you're satisfying your customers, and then finding ways through testing and process improvements or waste reduction, how to give your customer what they want. Which brings you into a little bit in depth where Six Sigma starts to look at your actual equipment, and it focuses on your ROIC, which is a return on invested capital. So if you've got some expensive equipment, you want to make sure that that equipment is doing what it's supposed to do. Buying an expensive piece of equipment because you think you need it, if you don't need it, you need to know it. And that's why you take data measurements. And if you do need it, make sure that if you're going to invest in capital, you get the right equipment. So let's see. As I wind down, here's an example of a cable company that made electrical cables. And this is kind of small, but I tried to highlight that there are a couple of voids when they had the material trying to adhere to the wire to insulate the cable, insulate the wire. And they had real trouble doing it without creating voids, which negatively impacted the performance of the cable. So they had to inspect cables. The good ones went to the higher level applications, and the ones that weren't so good went to commercial applications. Through design of experiments and statistical techniques and exhaustive testing, they found a way to get the base material to adhere perfectly to the current carrying wire, such that all of their product was good at the highest level. So they eliminated sorting and ended up being able to sell a better product than their customer, or than their supplier, than their competitors. I will tell you that this doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes you can get into a problem that takes months, but if you don't start, you never get there. And my buddy. Oh, hold it. We got a poll. Why do companies need Lean Six Sigma?
Please make sure you read all the answers to this question. It's very important.
Hey, I'm biased. All right, so how many, is that everybody?
I'm gonna send somebody a special gift that picked Henry needs a job. I think I may know who it is.
Well, that is
That
the
is-
right answer.
That is everyone. And yeah.
That is
That's
the right
everyone.
answer.
Yeah.
So anyone who said Henry needs a job, much appreciated. So we'll leave it at all of the above. All right, yeah, all of the above. Henry does need a job. Okay, so going back to my buddy Albert Einstein, you cannot solve your problems with the same kind of thinking that you used to create the problem. So if you've been doing something the same way over time, you got to come up with some kind of new strategies to help solve your problems. And if you haven't been involved with Lean Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma, any combination of the two, and you've got problems and they continue, then I think Lean Six Sigma would be a good opportunity to help reduce some of your issues, solve some of your problems, especially if you've got repeat problems. Because if you got repeat problems, you are not getting to the root cause. So I like Einstein's thing. He also said, I never commit to memory what I can look up, which I always thought was interesting. My teachers, they would never do that. They just bring the book in. They want you to memorize stuff. You try to throw that Einstein at them, they threw me out of the room. So getting back to companies that have deployed Lean Six Sigma, various and sundry, all the major corporations from Caterpillar to Ford to Osram, my alma mater, GE, 3M, all the major global manufacturers. And they deployed it with different levels of the belts that I mentioned earlier. So, you look at the individual, you want to apply as many Six Sigma tools as you can learn. You'll develop skill sets that, help everybody improve the organization, build upon and increase their internal individual capabilities. And, the key thing is you'll need to, the further you go up the belt ladder, the more mathematical concepts you'll need to understand. You start with the basic algebra, but then you'll end up with some very higher level mathematics. And as we wind down, NASA MEP can help you in these areas. We do have a white belt training coming up in August. That we do offer yellow belt training. That's typically 20 hours. Lean Six Sigma green belt training, 80 hours. So that's kind of a 2-week course that we wouldn't do it 2 weeks in a row because no one has 2 weeks in a row to give up. That's something we could do on site virtually, 6 to 10 students. We do 1 or 2 days a week, however necessary. And then exhaustively Lean Six Sigma black belt training, which is, that's a 3 good week, intense statistical assault on your senses. And I believe that would be it. So do we have any questions with 5 minutes to go?
No. There may be one more poll. I think, Henry, there's just maybe one more poll. Oh, there it is. Riley.
Would you like to attend the white belt training? I'll be there.
I like this. I like these answers that are rolling in here. Did I already say when you have the polls up, it's kind of like watching slot machines in a casino?
What are you seeing here? Cherries?
Yeah, all cherries on this one, all cherries. I like it. Yes, and maybe. Well, I did put in the chat, I did put the link to the registration page. And I will be happy to pop up the discount code. Oh, we have a question, Henry. Have you seen the LinkedIn training for Six Sigma?
I have not, actually.
No, we have not, but we will look into it. Thank you very much.
I've already done it, so I really don't need to look into it. Mine's better.
I would agree with you, Henry, on that. I would agree with you. All right, so I'm gonna pop in here. I'm gonna put this, I want to share something really quick.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
Did another question come in?
How can you get people on board on the shop floor? The good question. And if you have a decent relationship, if you don't have a good relationship, you want to bring in a person or two from the shop floor that has experience on the process and product that you're working on. And you end up treating that person as an equal. One of the things we teach in some of our trainings is the guy on the floor, no one knows more about the process than the guy on the floor. And when you bring him in, you treat him as an equal. And he has an equal say, an equal vote in all of any brainstorming. You just treat them all as an equal. And if you treat people with respect and as an equal, and you start to make improvement, you basically you bought him or her. You won them over. So, my first project, I had very good success, and we improved the tools so the people actually the process ran better with more uptime. So there wasn't this chaos trying to always get machines up and running. So how long before they see the results from data collection? Well, that depends on how quickly you get things fixed, and how quickly you reduce the variation and improve your process. There's no right or wrong answer for that. If you find the magic bullet in 3 days, they'll see things in 3 days. But it takes a week, 2 months, 2 months. So it's really a function of how successful you are at identifying the real key to the issues. But bring them along for the ride. And hopefully you'll have a good ride.
Yeah, good one. And as Henry said, it is if anybody listens to our podcast, we do have a manufacturing podcast, and we talked about it. And Henry said, I asked him a question. It's a 2-day training, and he said, you do have to attend both days training because you don't want to only get 3 of the 6 Sigmas.
The answer to your question is you will have to read them to read. You'll have to teach them how to read charts.
I put the discount code up there so you can attend the training. It's $49. So Charles, please take advantage of the code and register for the training. It'll be 8 hours of your time that you invest, and $49, but it will be well worth it for you. Great.
There's my email address. If you have any further questions, feel free. Glad to field them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we are at our mark. It is 2 o'clock. So we want to thank everybody for attending. You have the code, and we put out Henry's email address, which is henryh@massmep.org. If you have any questions whatsoever, Hopefully we'll see most of you in August 25th and August 26th. That's where we will be for the white belt, Lean Six Sigma white belt certification training. So thanks everybody for attending today, and we will hopefully see you guys all again soon in August.